I'm Father Brian Lynch, and I'm thirsty. And I've been associate pastor here since July 1st. I was ordained a Catholic priest 14 years ago, and I've been what many would consider an unusually religious adult man for more than 25 years, having lived in a religious community as a Carmelite brother for 6 years before entering the seminary in 2002. However, and this is a big however given the nature of our talk, I am neither a yoga practitioner nor a guru, and I did not stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, though I now find myself wishing I had done so. I did participate in some weekly yoga classes 12 years ago over a period of a few months. During that time, I did not have any particularly significant yoga experiences, nor did I consider myself to be practicing another religion by doing yoga at that time. I am, however, a curious person and wanted to better understand yoga in the context of the Catholic tradition to which I am committed. And so I've taken some time to learn something about it. When it comes to understanding yoga in a Catholic context, my guru is Father Ezra Sullivan, a Catholic priest currently teaching and studying theology in Rome. The majority of the substance in this presentation is lifted shamelessly from the thought of Father Ezra, who deserves credit for any good that comes from this talk. It is likely that anything I say that is untrue or unhelpful is an unfortunate consequence of my attempt to present Father Ezra's ideas to the limited extent that I understand them and believe that they might be helpful to you. And for these honest mistakes and shortcomings, I accept the blame. One of the reasons I'm a disciple of Father Ezra is that I respect him for not simply being an academic living in an ivory tower who points out the shortcomings of the common folk. I believe Father Ezra understands one of Jesus's major critiques of the Pharisees. The Pharisees, of course, were the lay religious leaders of his time and culture with whom he was frequently debating, if not plainly arguing, and sometimes he was not even Minnesota nice about it. In the Gospels, we find that on one occasion, Jesus said to the people and to his own disciples, "The scribes and the Pharisees have taken their seat on the chair of Moses. Therefore, do and observe all things whatsoever they tell you. But do not follow their example. For they preach, but they do not practice. They tie up heavy burdens hard to carry and lay them on people's shoulders, but they will not lift a finger to move them." That's from Matthew chapter 23. When it comes to yoga, Father Ezra, I believe, does not lay burdens on people and refuse to help them, and I think he does more than simply lift a finger. For years, he has been a spiritual advisor for an organization called Pietra Fitness. On their website, you can read the following. In addition to the 5 articles that I've shamelessly lifted this material from Father Ezra. It says there at the Pietra Fitness website that Pietra Fitness exists to help people increase their faith and improve their health and well-being through Catholic prayer and spirituality and stretching and strengthening postures. It goes on to say you can improve your health, wellness, and happiness by strengthening your mental, physical, and spiritual foundations. We have worked hard to develop a program with a solid foundation in each of these areas so that with God's grace, you can rejuvenate, refresh, and restore your whole person, body, mind, and soul. It is our goal to help you achieve your optimal health regardless of your age, physical limitations, and state of health. End of quote. For the record, I have no official affiliation or relationship with Father Ezra Sullivan or Pietra Fitness. I have never even participated in a Pietra Fitness class, and I have no financial stake in the organization. I have, however, encouraged and supported a friend and former staff member at a previous assignment to become a certified Pietra Fitness instructor. So please keep in mind that my goal this evening is to help you to have a better relationship with Jesus and his church, and I hope that will happen for each and every one of you. I have no idea what that will look like for any of you, but I do hope and have prayed that at least one of you will leave here with an interest in Pietra Fitness, and I will provide each of you with information to pursue that program. However, I think it is only the rare case that someone will come to practice Pietra Fitness before she will come to know about yoga. So for practical purposes, I consider Pietra Fitness as an alternative to yoga that is more intentionally rooted in and committed to the Catholic tradition. However, to know why one might want to explore an alternative to yoga, including Pietra Fitness and the many other forms of exercise available, we must know more about yoga, including elements of yoga that are at odds with Christian philosophy and theology. So that's a lot from me. It's a chance for you to get involved, and you don't have to, but I'm going to talk about why reasons people might practice yoga, what some of the potential benefits yoga offers. Does anyone want to, this is your chance to share, anyone? Okay. This is it. Go. Okay, you guys speak loudly. Stretching. Good, stretching. Anything else? Restorative, calming. Good. Okay? I mean, you can't be wrong, I don't think, because you might do it for any number of reasons. Some of them that I have written down here are improved flexibility, general conditioning, stress relief, improved overall health, and physical fitness. Those seems like good things. Anyone want to add to that or detract from that? Okay. Doctors and practitioners agree that when practiced moderately, yoga can strengthen a person, help her lose weight, and give her more energy. Yoga is also often associated with positive emotional well-being. Adding on to the individual benefits, there are often attractive cultural aspects of yoga. It helps people meet people, and these people are often attractive, intelligent people. And this results in friendship with attractive and intelligent people. It's often convenient, and at least at a basic level, it is not terribly expensive. I think you need a mat. I don't even think the pants are required, but certainly popular. These are good things. So I don't think we have to be silly and deny that people like yoga because it offers some real benefits. However, some of these goods might be accomplished and acquired by other ways and means. One example, not to be silly, but one example would be medication or drugs, whether legal or otherwise. As you know, drugs often have side effects, and when determining whether or not to use a particular drug to achieve a particular result, one needs to evaluate not only the pros of the drug, but also the cons of its side effects. It seems to me that while yoga does not have the immediate evident negative side effects the way that smoking cigarettes does, your clothes are all smoky, I will be making the case that there are at least potential if not probable, negative spiritual side effects of practicing yoga, especially over a period of years. And this might be frustrating for some of you. How I would love it to be, my whole talk to be, yoga's bad, good night, see ya. It might be frustrating for you. I'm not claiming that after your first yoga class, you'll be sought out for a starring role in the next sequel of The Exorcist. Among my principal concerns is that over time, yoga may lead you away from Jesus and his church. So let's get back to my intentionally provocative title. So to what gods will you be joining yourself today? Catholic concerns about yoga. Our English word yoga is derived from a word found in the ancient foundational texts of the Hindu religion, texts that are thousands of years old. The word from which our English word yoga is derived can be translated to yoke together, or union, or to join, or to bind. Our own St. Thomas Aquinas explains that the word religion may be derived from the Latin word religare, which means to bind together, and that St. Augustine says, may religion bind us to the one Almighty God. He says that in the Summa, St. Thomas, explaining the origin of the word religion and one of Augustine's sayings. This suggests that the essence of yoga and the essence of a religion are one and the same. Yoga and religion both aim at joining the individual to divinity. So as Christians, it seems reasonable to proceed with caution since the roots of yoga are in another religion, Hinduism. One definition of yoga that acknowledges its connection to Hinduism is the following. Yoga is a comprehensive system of human culture, physical, moral, and psychological, and acting as a doorway onto the gentle sloping paths that gradually lead up to yoga proper, that is, the spirituality of yoga founded in Hinduism. Its aim is to control the body and the various forms of vital energy with a view of overcoming physical impediments standing in the way of other spiritual forms of yoga. Its object is to ensure a perfect balance between organic functions. Its ultimate goal and true end is to prepare man for the acquisition of that repose of spirit necessary for the realization of the supreme, ultimate, divine one. This is where things can not only get tricky for Christians, especially those of us of European descent living in America. Our religion, Christianity, is one of the three Abrahamic religions, which of course also includes Judaism and Islam. Hinduism, the spirituality and anthropology and philosophy on which yoga is constructed, is not one of these monotheistic Abrahamic religions, and so it does not claim to join, unite, bind, or yoke its adherents to the God befriended by Abraham the patriarch, that is, the one true God of the Bible, that adherents of the three Abrahamic religions claim to worship exclusively. It does, however, claim to offer an experience of the supreme, ultimate, divine one. To make things even more complicated for us Catholics, we belong to the most organized of religions, much more organized than even any other Abrahamic religions and the other mainstream versions of Christianity. Our religion is so organized that some of us may be more organized than we are religious. It's quite possible that we assume that all religions are very much like our own, and this happens quite frequently. For example, you will often hear Christians with very good intentions saying that every human being is a child of God. Perhaps you've done this yourself. However, Orthodox Muslims do not believe that they are children of God. It's contrary to their theology, so much so that Fundamentalist Muslims may consider calling them children of God blasphemy. So we need to be careful when we assume that our Christian and Catholic understanding of God, the human person, and religion are shared by adherents to other religions and philosophies. Because of our own experience and understanding of a religion through the lens of Catholic Christianity, when we think of Hinduism, it is quite likely that we will assume that it is one unified and organized religion. However, it is instead a collection of sects, traditions, beliefs, and practices that evolved from the ancient scriptures of Hinduism and took shape across the Indian subcontinent over the course of many centuries. It has no central authority like our Pope, no founding figure like Jesus, no historical starting point like the Paschal Mystery, no single creed like that of Nicaea, and has many holy books rather than one Bible. Because of this, Hinduism has been called the world's largest disorganized religion. And that there's no judgment on, some people much prefer disorganized religion, so there's no judgment, but just simply it's not very much like our own religion in its structure and unity. Nevertheless, despite the wide range of spiritual beliefs and religious practices that dwell under the umbrella of Hinduism, Hindus have generally recognized 6 principal schools of thought that represent authentic developments of their scriptures. And yoga is one of these authentic developments of the Hindu scriptures. Within this one school of yoga, there are a number of different yoga traditions. Among the major traditions are Raja Yoga, also called the yoga of mind control. It sounds kind of creepy and powerful, the yoga of mind control. I think you're controlling your own mind. I don't think you're going around controlling other people's minds. But this is considered to be the original yoga, sort of the yoga to which one ultimately aspires, and it's focused on disciplining the mind in pursuit of union with the supreme ultimate divine one. Mantra yoga, also called the yoga of sound, which uses sounds and songs, especially that familiar Om sound, in order to help the mind find union with the supreme ultimate divine one. And then there is Hatha yoga, also called the yoga of opposing forces, which focuses on physical postures and breathing techniques. It is this Hatha yoga tradition that is dominant in our American culture and is most likely to be what you think of as yoga plain and simple. In the ancient Sanskrit language of the Hebrew scriptures, Hatha means sun, moon, which represents the union of 2 opposite forces, a union accomplished in a person through the practice of the disciplines of the various yoga traditions. This union of opposing forces occurs on different levels. On the most basic or introductory level of Hatha yoga, the one that we hear about, know about, perhaps practice, defined by bodily postures called poses or asanas, and united with conscious patterns of breathing. It is this uniting or yoking of poses with breathing within the body of the yoga practitioner that is perhaps the most obvious kind of uniting or yoking that Hatha yoga practice in the United States has to offer, especially for the yoga novice. They may find they may experience some unification in their practice of the bodily postures and in the breathing. There are, however, varying degrees to the quality of one's yoga pose and pattern of breathing. And like many other physical activities, improving the quality of poses and breathing requires practice. One prominent yoga practitioner explains perfection of a yoga pose in this way. Posture becomes perfect when the effort to attain it disappears so that there are no more movements in the body. Again, posture becomes perfect when the effort to attain it disappears so that there are no more movements in the body. This mentioning of effort to attain, this mention of effort to attain the pose disappearing, this disappearance of effort, reminds me of my own experience of wrestling. My first 3 years of wrestling were filled with uncomfortable and even painful experiences, whether these were self-inflicted during the course of training or at the hands of my sparring partners. Not only that, my attempts to perform various maneuvers such as the superfly, the sunset flip, and the pile driver required great deals of thought, and I performed them only very slowly, so slowly that the guy had moved by the time I was ready to do what I thought I might do. However, in my 4th year, something just clicked, and I can't explain it. In addition to being in much better physical shape than I had been when I first started wrestling, I no longer needed to analyze the posture of my opponent, determine an appropriate maneuver, and then execute the maneuver. In that 4th year, I simply saw my opponent's position and reacted to it spontaneously by executing the appropriate move at the appropriate time, almost without thought, that is, spontaneously. And as I was in one of a revision I never got to make, there's muscle memory involved in this. You repeat all these actions. There's muscle memory. There's a fly here. So this happens in physical activities. We improve with practice, right? I have every reason to believe that something similar happens in the yoga practitioner over months and years of practice. Postures and breathing techniques that were once uncomfortable and difficult to execute become comfortable and happen spontaneously, even at the mere suggestion of a pose. However, with yoga, there are side effects that, while not present in wrestling, may be similar to the state of euphoria experienced by long-distance runners, commonly known as runner's high. This is because the biomechanics of hatha yoga poses and breathing techniques have the potential to calm the emotions, one of the benefits which is sought out. With proficiency gained over years of practice, the hatha yoga practitioner may experience deep relaxation and accompanying sensations of quiet, light, warmth, and expansion, even to the point of losing conscious awareness of one's body. It is in these comforting, pleasant, and unusual physical and emotional experiences that unfold with mastery of yoga postures and breathing techniques over years of practice that the hatha yoga practitioner may be led to believe that she is having not just an authentic and positive physical or emotional experience, but an authentic and positive spiritual experience. Of course, she is much more likely to believe this is the case, that she is experiencing an authentic spiritual experience if her yoga instructor or guru has this belief, is invested in this belief, believes in this belief, and encourages this in the students during the practice of yoga or in whatever book that the guru has written. For this reason, the belief system of one's yoga instructor is quite significant and impactful. For example, the same prominent yoga practitioner quoted earlier who said that posture becomes perfect when the effort to attain it disappears so that there is no more movement in the body. She continued her explanation of the process of perfecting yoga by going on to say, its perfection is achieved when the mind is transformed into infinity. Its perfection is achieved when the mind is transformed into infinity. Now we're getting away from physical and emotional things. In other words, a person begins yoga by being hyper-conscious about her body as she tries to perfect her positioning. As she perfects her posture over months and years of practice, she gains control over her limbs, control over her breathing, control over her entire body as a complete whole. And this may be experienced and understood to be the union that yoga has to offer. However, over time, if and when she experiences deep relaxation and other physical and emotional sensations that may accompany spontaneous and well-executed yoga postures and breathing techniques, these sensations may be understood to be authentic, spiritual, even mystical experiences like those of the Christian saints. However, from the standpoint of Christian anthropology, the Christian understanding of the human person, Christian philosophy, Christian theology, this would be an erroneous conclusion. Though bodily postures and intentional patterns of breathing often have physical and emotionally beneficial effects that need not be denied, these are not authentic indicators of spiritual progress, much less indicators of an increase in Christian holiness or an experience of the Holy Spirit. At this point, I'd like to just acknowledge that the erroneous conclusions concerning spiritual progress and holiness are not unique to free-spirited folks, people in California, yoga practitioners, and that even rigidly conservative Catholics with years and years of training in Christian theology and practice are susceptible to deceiving themselves when they evaluate their spiritual experiences, their own spiritual experiences. I recall a priest who was convinced that he was experiencing an extreme state of spiritual desolation that in the Carmelite tradition of St. John of the Cross is called the dark night of the soul. Though I am not able to describe the dark night of the soul from personal experience because I understand it to be a rare spiritual state experienced by extremely holy people like St. Mother Teresa, I am approximately 99% certain that my brother priest was much more likely suffering from low-grade depression than the dark night of the soul. The point being, all of us, priests, religious, laity, we must be careful when we self-diagnose our spiritual experiences. This is some of the reason we have a tradition of spiritual directors, and it's an extremely important reason why we have the tradition of spiritual directors, objective outsiders rooted solidly in Christian tradition who understand how the spiritual life really works. This is certainly true, how careful we need to be if we're diagnosing ourselves, when we're employing techniques and practices outside the traditional bounds of Catholic tradition, as yoga does. So, in my opinion, this pseudo-spiritual experiences of the seasoned yoga practitioner are of concern, and for a number of reasons. The results of a survey conducted in Australia and published by the International Journal of Yoga helps us to understand why this is the case. This survey, published in about 8 years ago, showed that although most began yoga for reasons of physical health, they usually continued it for reasons of spirituality. In addition, the more people practice yoga, the more likely they were to decrease their adherence to Christianity, and the more likely they were to adhere to non-religious spirituality and Buddhism. In other words, whatever their original intentions may have been for taking their first yoga class, many people experience yoga as a gateway to a pseudo-spirituality disconnected from Christ, or even a substitute for Christ and the church. I suspect that in the case of devout Christians who practice yoga, the situation is analogous to the frog in the boiling pot of water. If the Christian attending her first yoga class experienced the cumulative spiritual and religious consequences of 10 years of yoga practice during her very first class, she would be frightened and not return for a second class for fear of losing her Christian faith. However, when the effects are gradual but accumulative over years and years, she may remain comfortable with the very small incremental steps leading her away from her Christian convictions and find herself in a very different place spiritually and religiously after 10 years of yoga practice. Although in my provocative title I questioned to which God you would be joining yourself today, we've spent little time on the Hindu understanding of things divine. I'm just going to check my watch to see. Oh gosh. It's 8:05. Okay, I'll keep. Like other religions, there are at least two different levels of understanding within Hinduism. There is a basic version for the masses that perhaps more than 90% of adherents practice, and there is a more sophisticated version for the more educated and enlightened minority. The basic version of Hinduism for the masses looks like polytheism, something we learned about in school, the Greeks and the Romans, the belief and worship of many gods. Some of the many Hindu gods traditionally associated with yoga are Shiva, Vishnu, and two of Vishnu's 9 manifestations were Krishna and Buddha, and then Shakti, she's a female god. At this level, graven images or idols of the Hindu gods are well established. They've got standard forms and poses, right? So you can tell who they are if you know the tradition. You see them, you know who they are. So those are well established, these graven images, and it's quite possible that a yoga instructor will have one of these idols present at a yoga session. The traditional Catholic Christian position is that these spirits, in fact, do exist, but are evil spirits and should not be invoked. As the book of Exodus tells us, I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a graven image. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. It is for this reason that Father Ezra Sullivan teaches that if a person calls upon gods during the practice of yoga, as in performing postures in the presence of a Hindu statue or in chanting mantras to a god or goddess, then she has practiced idolatry and her spiritual condition is worse than when she began. I've not spoken much at all about the meaning of chants and mantras derived from the yoga tradition, but these are also of concern because in many cases the practitioner will not know with certainty if the word derived from the ancient Sanskrit or other languages native to India has a connection with the Hindu gods who, in the Christian tradition, we believe to be evil spirits, prowling about the world seeking the ruin of souls as we regularly pray. As for the more sophisticated version of Hinduism practiced by the educated and commonly embraced by Hindu yoga practitioners, Shiva, Vishnu, Shakti, and their Hindu god friends do exist, but not in the sort of simplistic, literal way that the masses imagine them to exist. Rather, these Hindu gods are all manifestations or avatars of the supreme, ultimate divine one, which someone in a Western context like ours might simply refer to as God. However, in the traditional Hindu setting of yoga, this supreme, ultimate divine one would be called by various other names, specific names including Brahman. This Brahman is not God in the Judeo-Christian sense. Brahman has no personality. He's not the one creator distinct from the universe who created humans in order to have a personal relationship with us. Consequently, Brahman is not the God of the Bible. So while we might mistake this elevated Hinduism for a form of monotheism, it is not monotheism as we understand it, but rather pantheism. Pantheism is the belief that all things in the universe together compose the supreme, ultimate divine one, and in Hinduism that is Brahman. Now, when it comes to the relationship of Jesus to yoga, this is kind of strange and tricky. The Brahman of yoga is certainly not Jesus, and certainly not Jesus, the only begotten incarnate Son of God, as we understand him. However, because Jesus has a human nature, a yoga practitioner may consider Jesus to be Brahman the way Vishnu is Brahman, that is, as a manifestation or avatar of Brahman. Of course, as Catholics, we reject this understanding of Jesus, as we reject all kinds of other traditions who have taken Jesus and turned him into something else, the Mormons, the Muslims, all kinds of folks. Everyone loves Jesus, it's just a different version. From the perspective of the higher Hinduism of the educated and enlightened, yoga's role is to help the practitioner to be dissolved into this Brahman. One renowned yoga practitioner explains it like this: dualities like gain and loss, victory and defeat, fame and shame, body and mind and soul vanish through mastery of the yoga postures. This is the doctrine of monism. Monism claims that there are no real distinction among things, that all is really one, and that every difference is a harmful illusion that causes suffering, holding a person back from perfection. It is said that once a person masters yoga, she is then free from birth and death, from pain and sorrow, and becomes immortal. She has no self-identity, and she lives experiencing the fullness of the Supreme Ultimate Divine One. This, too, of course, is a claim that we reject as Catholics. The goal of all Indian philosophies and techniques, especially yoga, is liberation from human suffering, even at the cost of annihilating oneself. Liberation entails not merely relief from physical suffering, such as headache, but emancipation from the suffering that comes from existing in this world. By practicing yoga, it is said that one can transcend the suffering that comes from karma, the law of universal causality, which condemns us to reincarnation. Yoga claims that by it you can enter the Supreme Ultimate Divine One. No longer will you be imprisoned in becoming, rather, you would be united with and dissolved into the Supreme Ultimate Divine One, that is Brahman. The self and all relationships disappear, and all that is left is the Supreme Ultimate Divine One. Again, as Catholics, we reject this claim as false and dangerous. So that's all I'd really like to share with you this evening about yoga. I hope the information will empower and enable you to make good decisions concerning yoga. It's my own belief that if the benefits associated with mastering bodily posture and breathing techniques are desired by someone, these are worth doing well and without the spiritual dangers that yoga presents. To that end, I hope you will consider PHR Fitness. I intend to place a letter written by my friend I mentioned earlier, who is a PHR Fitness instructor, on the table by the entrance of the building, and I encourage you to contact her by way of the information she provides. If anyone's seeing me on video, if you go to the Transfiguration website and email me, I can send you an electronic copy of that letter. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to me, and may the one true God, who is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, bless you all. Have a great evening.